Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Commander's Forge. My name is Andy Bentley, and the Forge is an area for me to talk about Magic, Commander, and anything else. Now, I apologize for my voice. My sinuses are having a field day right now. But I just want to talk real quick about the league that I've started with my playgroup and where it's going. We're currently still on a slight hiatus just because everybody's so busy and we haven't been able to play this month yet. But I have mentioned previously that we're putting some new rules in so that the games don't get super stagnant. One of those rules is there is a limit on the number of times you can play a commander. So from my pool, I built two decks, which is the Heliod the Radiant Dawn and Kroxa Titan of Death's Hunger, and I played each of them twice. So for this month, I've kept them together. I've just updated them with cards that I opened, and I get two more plays out of each of them, and then next month I will swap. My box that I started with was March of the Machine, and then after the first month, we get to add 6 packs of a set that was standard. And for this year's league, we decided that would include anything that was released in 2023 and anything upcoming in 2024. So for my second one, I already had the 6 Phyrexia packs set aside, so that's what I went with. And that did add 4 legendary creatures to my pool. Those being Venser Corpse Puppet, Solithum Mayhem Dominus, Geth Thane of Contracts, and Atraxa Grand Unifier. And yeah, I don't know. I've got a lot to choose from for what I want to build next. And I've got to decide what packs I want to add next. I am leaning towards Lost Caverns of Ixalan. But I also haven't really been looking at anything for Murders at Karlov Manor. So once I actually stop ignoring the internet for a little bit and actually see what's going on with that, so I might choose to go that direction. But let's just talk about a little bit of what I did end up changing in the 2 decks that I have. So, ironically, they both had 21 cards that got changed out. One of the bigger pickups for the Heliod deck was actually just more Phyrexian stuff. Because I had stuff that cared about Phyrexians in there, but not a ton of Phyrexians to begin with. But also things that proliferate. Phyrexian Atlas, I actually picked up 2 of these in the 6 packs that I opened. So there's one in each deck. Then just like combat tricks and a counterspell and cantrips. And then a bunch of flyers, which kind of fit into the sub-theme too. So like Basilica Shepherd, which is a 5-mana 3/3 flying Phyrexian angel, but when it enters you get 2 of the 1/1 Phyrexian mites. Or Apostle of Invasion, which is 4 white for a 4/4 Phyrexian angel with flying and corrupted. And as long as an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, the Angel of Invasion has double strike. Other than that, it's just a lot of utility stuff, and then lands. For Heliod in general, it's the Seed Core. I opened a foil one of those. Taps add a colorless, and you can tap to add 1 mana of any color, but spend this only to cast Phyrexian creature spells. But it has Corrupted, and you can tap it and give target 1/1 creature +2/+1 till end of turn. Activate only if an opponent has 3 or more poison counters. So this, I included it mostly because I did add things that make the 1/1 mites and a couple 1/1 flyers. and I opened, I believe, every one of the colored sphere lands besides the green one. So this one got the white and the blue one, and obviously Croxa got the red and the black one. Now, on Croxa's side, I ended up, well, A, with more Phyrexian things that care about stuff dying. A reanimation spell, some draw spells, a couple removal spells, and yeah, like I think the big pickup here is really just the removal spells and the lands. That was something I noticed that the deck had been missing in its first form. So let's see, what do we got here for removal spells? First up, we have Vraska's Fall, which is 2 and a black. For an instant, each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker and gets a poison counter. This one doesn't care so much about the poison counters like the Heliod deck does, but it does have some toxic in there now. Where'd it go? Oh, Rebel Salvo, which is 2 and a red for an instant with affinity for equipment. I will tell you there's no equipment in here. But deals 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker. That permanent loses indestructible till end of turn. That is more relevant than I can explain, because I did almost lose to something just having indestructible in the last game we played. We've got a Whisper of the Dross, which just gives a creature -1/-1 and then proliferates. Annihilating Glare, which destroys a target creature or planeswalker. It's just, I just have my decks ready for this month's League games whenever we get to them, and until we get to them, they shall sit on my desk and wait. Alright, enough about those. I'm gonna wrap this section up, and then when we come back, I'm gonna talk about a legendary deck that I've been putting together. I'll be right back. Hey, I just want to take a minute to tell you about my Patreon. I know times are hard for everybody, and I know it isn't easy to shuffle around bills and stuff. Believe me, I know that. But if you would like to help support the podcast and me, you can find the links to my Patreon in my link tree, which is always put into the description of either the video or the audio, wherever you're listening to it. It would really mean the world to me. Honestly, I'm just struggling to make ends meet most weeks. But that's it. That's all. If you want to help, the links will be where you can find them. And welcome back. Now, a while back, I had built a what's his name? Shanid Sleeper's Scourge deck, which is 1 and Mardu for a 2/4 Human Knight with Menace. Other legendary creatures you control have Menace, and whenever you play a legendary land or cast a legendary spell, you draw a card and lose a life. And it didn't quite play the way I wanted it to. It never seemed to get off the ground. And so I tore it apart to build some other stuff, and pieces of it were just kind of sitting in a box. Well, I was going through stuff, and I found a copy of Queen Marchesa. Now, Queen Marchesa is 1 and Mardu for a 3/3 human assassin with Death Touch and Haste. When she enters the battlefield, you become the monarch, and at the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent is the monarch, put a 1/1 black assassin creature token with Death Touch and Haste onto the battlefield. And I just kind of started pulling cards, and I was like, oh yeah, I still have the Sanid, and I have this thing, and this thing, and this thing. And I threw this together. So, Queen Marchesa is the commander, but I kind of built the deck around 3... I don't necessarily want to call them secret commanders, but like 3 lieutenants. The first one being Sanad, Sleeper Scourge. The second one being Alesha, Who Smiles at Death. And the last one being Rosie Cotton of South Lane. So, breaking down where they fit for Sanad, there are 44 other legendary creatures and lands and other stuff. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Now, for Alesha, Who Smiles at Death, she's 2 in a red for a 3/2 human warrior with first strike. When she attacks, you can pay 2 hybrid white-black. If you do, return target creature card with power 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped and attacking. There are, I believe it's 20 cards that she can get back from the graveyard. But that also includes, in that number, both Sanad, Sleeper Scourge, and Rosie Cotton of South Lane. So we can continually rebuy them with her. Now, as for Rosie Cotton of South Lane, 2 and a white for a 1/1 halfling peasant. When she enters the battlefield, create a food token. Whenever you create a token, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control other than Rosie. I have not as many ways to make tokens, but I do have like around 10, which is kind of like where I put the number for it to be a sub-theme is like 10 cards that care about a thing. And yeah, from there, we're just gonna go into some of the other cards that are included that do things. Now that we have like an idea of what the deck is trying to do overall. First up, from the same precon that Sanad is from, we have the Face Commander, Dahada, Binder of Wills, which is 1 and Mardu for a 5 loyalty legendary planeswalker. It has a +2 for up to 1 target legendary creature gains Vigilance, Lifelink, and Indestructible until your next turn, which is just a good way to like keep your commander around. It has a -3. Reveal the top 4 cards of your library. Put any number of legendary cards from among them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. Create a treasure token for each card put into your graveyard this way. We do have, I want to say it's like 3 creatures that aren't legendary that just care about the things we're doing, so they got included. But other than that, those couple of cards, a couple of instants and sorceries, and some lands, she's going to hit basically every time. And then -11, gain control of all non-land permanents until end of turn. Untap them, they gain haste until end of turn. Which is just, insurrection. Moving to the next one, we have Mary, Squire of Rohan, which is a red and a white for a 2/2 halfling knight. They have haste and first strike as long as it's equipped. But what we really care about is whenever you attack with Mary and another legendary creature, draw a card. That's also kind of in the list of things that Alesha can get back. We really can't talk about a Mardu legendary deck without talking about like one of the first Mardu legends to really be built, and that's Zurgo, Helm Smasher, 2 in Mardu for a 7/2 Orc Warrior with haste. Attacks each combat if able. Has Indestructible as long as it's your turn. And whenever a creature dealt damage by Zurgo this turn dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Zurgo. Next up, we have Kadric, Soul Kindler. 2 red-white for a 4/3 dwarf wizard that says the legend rule doesn't apply to tokens you control. And then, whenever another non-token legendary permanent enters the battlefield under your control, you can pay 1. If you do, you create a copy of it. It gains haste, sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step. That's one of the cards that goes with Rosie, because obviously you have them both out, you make a token, you pay 1, making the token, put a counter on something, stuff like that. Next up we have Denethor, Ruling Steward, 1 white-black for a 2/4 human noble. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died under your control this turn, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token, and you can pay 2, sacrifice another creature to have each opponent lose 1 life, and you gain 1 life. Next up we have Wurnog, Rider's Chaplain, which is the in-universe version of one of the Friends Forever cards. I don't know which one. It is a white and a black for a 1/2 human. When Wurnog enters or leaves the battlefield, each opponent may investigate. Each opponent who doesn't loses 1 life, and you investigate X times, where X is 1 plus the number of opponents who investigated this way. So, especially with the, rebuying it with Alesha, but then, we just had something that can sacrifice things. This is one of the ones that we don't mind looping in and out of our graveyard. Next up, we have Elishnorn, Grand Cenobite, 5 white for a 4/7 Phyrexian Praetor with Vigilance. Other creatures you control get +2/+2. Creatures your opponents control get -2/-2. This is one of those cards that people play when they're like, oh, hey, I'm going to play this, kill all of your defenders, and then win the game. That's essentially what it's doing here. Next up, we have Anafenza, Kintree Spirit, white for a 2/2 Spirit Soldier. Whenever another non-token creature you control or enters the battlefield under your control, bolster 1. Drana, Liberator of Malakir, 1 black for a 2/3 Vampire Ally with Flying and First Strike. Whenever Drana, Liberator of Malakir, deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on each attacking creature you control. I like Drana mostly for the Alesha plan, because Alesha can attack, get Drana back tapped and attacking. Drana hits with First Strike, puts a counter on everything else, including Alesha. Rinse and repeat, right? Now, I did mention a few non-legendary creatures, and one of the ones I want to talk about is Lychguard, which is 2 and a black for a 2/3 Necron, and it has Guardian Protocols, which is an ability where you pay 3 and a black, sacrifice Lychguard, return all legendary creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. So, this is one of the ways we put in there to get back, namely the Alesha, but if we don't have Alesha and we need to get back, say, Sanid or Rosie, we can just rebuy them that way. And it wouldn't be a legendary deck without some legendary sorceries. The first one we're going to talk about is Urza, Ruinous Blast, 4 and a white. Legendary sorcery. Exile all non-land permanents that aren't legendary. Pretty self-explanatory. Next up, we have Primeval's Glorious Rebirth, 5 white-black for a legendary sorcery. Return all legendary permanent cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, that's kind of it in a bottle. I haven't had a chance to play it yet. And who knows, maybe it won't stick around forever, but so far I've only had one Mardu deck that really stuck, and that's my Mardu equipment deck. And I would like to have something other than that to pull out every once in a while when I want to play Mardu. So yeah, that's kind of it. I guess this is where I'm going to call this one. And I hope y'all have a good whatever time you happen to be listening to this. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening. All of my links can be found in my link tree in the description below. I would like to thank Ian Foss and Cody Mulpey of the band The Crypt for allowing me to use music for my opening and ending.
along with Nate and Erica Jacobs for making my original logo. And I would also like to thank Christina McNichol for creating my new logo. And I'll see you next time.